Hello, here's a page on notes on identifying zeros. So the topic, I would say, is identifying zeros. So first we have to talk about what are zeros. Now, zeros are, simply put, it's where y is 0, or the output is 0. And it's how you list it is with the x. So first we'll talk about it graphically. So let's write down what are zeros. Graphically, let me try that again. Graphically. So if you're looking at a graph, they are the point or points. The point, and it might be one, it might be a bunch, so I'm going to put the little s in parentheses. The point or points at which the graph intersects the x-axis. Intersects. And intersects is a synonym for crosses. Actually, it's just where they meet, but we can think of it as crosses. So the point at which the graph intersects the x-axis. And it might do that once, might do that more than once. Now, we will also look at it algebraically. I'll do this in red. So algebraically, we will define it as the points at which f at x equals 0. The points, and it might be one or more, point or points at which f at x equals 0. Not where x equals 0, but where f at x equals 0. So, might be thinking, rightly so, that this is where it would also be like as if y equaled 0. So, now we'll look at them. What are they also called? Other names for zeros. You can call them x-intercepts. You can call them roots, or you can call them solutions. Now, you can do it with given a graph. If you're given a graph, like number 1, we need to think about where it crosses the x-axis. And if you noticed down here, let's make it bigger. For number 1, you can see that the line, this is the x-axis, remember, the one going this way. So you can see right here at the yellow mark, that's where it crosses the x-axis. And that point right there is, if we start at the origin and go over there, we'd go 1 unit, 2 units to the right. So we would say that the zeros on this graph are at x equals 2. It is the point 2, 0, but all we care about is the x-coordinate. So sometimes it's just a point like that. Sometimes, in this case, it's more than one point. On this graph, you can see it crosses the x-axis here and here. So if we count across to this point over here, it would be at, this is the origin, so we go over to 1. So x, and since it's more than one number, we're going to say that x equals the set that contains 1 is in there, but there's a smaller one, so I'm going to put this one on the right. Also over here, we would go 1, 2 to the left, so that would be negative 2. So x equals negative 2 is 1, 0. x equals 1 is the other 0. So, starting there, let's flip it over and see where we go next. That's given a graph. We need to do it algebraically and with the calculator. So 1 out of 3 ways done. Alright, so on the back of the sheet, we're going to put steps to identifying zeros algebraically. Step 1 would be set the function equal to 0. So we need to set the function equal to 0. Then step number 2 is simply to solve for x. Alright, so let's do one of these together. And let's do everybody loves fractions, let's do number 10. Number 10, we want to set that equal to 0. So instead of the f at x, which you know is like the y, we're going to put a 0 there. And then we have 2/3 x minus 6. Now, the first thing I need to do algebraically to work that out, I have solved for 0, or I have it set equal to 0, so now I just need to add 6 to that side and this side. I'll get 6 over here equals 2/3 x. The way to get rid of times 2/3, I would times by 3/2 to both sides. So this side would turn out to be 3 times 6 is 18 on top of 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. This side, these two canceled each other and became out with 1x, or 9. So we're going to call that 9 equals x. Okay, that's how you solve it algebraically. All I did was change the f of x symbol right here for a 0 and solved for x. Alright, now we're going to drop down to the bottom where it says using the graphing calculator. Now, first of all, before we graph with this graphing calculator, it's good to set the zoom, or what kind of graph we're looking at, the scale down to 10. So before you even hit step 1 here, I am going to say to find the zoom button, push the zoom button, go down, arrow down to number 6, and when you see that, it'll say Z standard, and you hit enter at number 6. And that will just get the calculator set up to a screen and a zoom that will work for our stuff. So zoom is in the top center of the whole calculator. You push that, it will give you a list of 1 through 7. You arrow down to number 6 and push enter, and that will make the graph work. Then you will hit step 1. You will hit y equals, that's at the top left of the calculator, and enter the function. So the one we're going to start with, it will say, when you hit y equals, it will say, it'll have things like y1 equals, and then you have to type the equation, and you're going to type it in. And then lastly, so we're going to enter that function. The last thing you're going to do is hit the graph button. That's on the top right. So this button, zoom, is in the top middle. We're all on that top row. First you zoom, go down to number 6 with the middle button. Then you hit the left button, type in your function. That will just be one of these guys over here. We'll type in all of something like that. And then when we hit graph, it'll then graph it the right way. So let's try it. Number 13, when you type it in, you first hit the alpha key, the green key, close to the top left. When you hit alpha, it will give you, you can see the green letters down, and where it says the second from the bottom left, it says it has a green X down there where it says STO. So if you hit the alpha STO button, it'll give you an X. Then you come up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons from the bottom on the left, and you'll see the squared, because that's how we'll get this square over here. And then we will hit the minus sign and the 16. So our calculator actually looks like it says y1 equals, and then you're typing the x with the alpha stow key, and then hit the x squared button and it puts a squared on it. And then you type minus, you type 16. Now you got the thing in there. Make sure there's nothing on y2, y3, or y4. If there is, just drop down and clear it. Hit the graph button and it will show you a picture where you can count across and see the x-intercepts. My calculator says there's one at negative 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can also see one at 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 4. And it is the set of both those that is my x equals, or my zeros. My zeros are at negative 4 and 4. Alright, as for using Desmos, let's put a line here. And remember, we installed the extension for Desmos. And I'm going to put down here a little note, Desmos. You will pull up the extension for Desmos. Then it is just waiting for you to go ahead and type what is in the box. And what you're going to hit is on the keypad. If you go to the bottom left and pop up the keypad, you are just going to type and what you're going to type is y equals and then your function. And once you type it, as a matter of fact, as you type it, it immediately graphs it as soon as it's got something to graph. And you can see it even puts 2 dots where the zeros are, and all you have to do is hover the mouse over them and you will see what they are. So, for example, let's do the same thing other calculator did. Go to Desmos and clear it and then type y equals, like this first one we had. You push the X button and then the button you hit next to get the little square actually appears, it looks like a squared. But if you hit that button, push that button, a squared, it will put the little square on there, and then you hit minus 16. And as you do that, as soon as you finish typing the 1 and the 6, it's going to graph, it's going to show you the graph, it's going to even put little dots where these things are. And if you take your mouse and hover it over that dot, it will give you the coordinates. If you hover it over the left dot, it gives you negative 4, 0. So you know that it'll say negative 4, 0. And this one it'll say 4, 0. So now you know that the zeros are x equals negative 4 and positive 4. Same thing we got with the graphing calculator. The other thing I want to point out is that when you need higher powers, such as when you see on number 22 you see the 4th power, on a graphing calculator you would actually type the x. I'm going to write this over to the side. I'll write it down low. On the graphing calculator, to get x to the 4th, you would actually type x caret 4, and that puts the 4 up in the right spot. On the Desmos, you are just going to, let me get rid of that. On Desmos, you are just going to, you already found the squared button, that's so popular, gets its own button, but then beside that A squared button, there's an A to the B button. If you put in your value there, hit the AB button, then you can actually type what power you want to go up where the B is. Thank you very much. Have a good day.